The ship was dying. Could feel it in the way the metal screamed around her. Red lights flashed everywhere. Alarms cried out in voices that hurt her sensitive ears. Smoke filled the corridors, thick and black, making it hard to breathe. She ran on all fours through the tilting hallways of the silent dawn. Her small body moved fast, dodging falling panels and sparking wires. Behind her, she could hear the voices of her crew calling out to each other. Captain was shouting orders. Engineer Minu was trying to reach the engine room. Navigator was pulling wounded crew members toward the escape pods. Was the youngest on the ship, only 16 cycles old. She was still learning how to be a proper navigator. The older crew members called her Little Pup and ruffled the fur between her ears when she did good work. They were her family, not by blood but by choice. Her real parents had died when she was very young, and Captain had taken her in, raised her on this ship, taught her the stars. Now the stars were killing them. The Silent Dawn had been a patrol vessel for the Galactic Union. A simple mission: check the outer systems, report anything strange, go home. But they had found something in the dark between worlds. A Dominion minefield left over from the last war. The ship had flown right into it before the sensors could warn them. The first explosion had torn off the left wing. The second had killed the engines. Now they were falling, pulled down by the gravity of a forest moon that nobody had ever named. Captain's voice cut through the chaos. He was large, his fur marked with old scars. His amber eyes found her in the smoke. "Get to Pod 7, now." "But the others—" "I will get the others, go." Wanted to argue, she wanted to stay with her pack, but she had been trained to follow orders, so she ran. Pod 7 was at the end of the corridor. A small metal egg designed to keep one person alive during a crash. Threw herself inside and hit the launch button with her paw. The pod shot away from the dying ship just as another explosion tore through the hull. Through the tiny window, watched the silent dawn break apart. She saw the other escape pods launching. 1, 2, 3. But then the ship's fuel reserves caught fire and a ball of white flame swallowed everything. Pressed her face against the glass and screamed. The pods, the crew, her family, all of it disappeared into fire and falling metal. She was alone. The forest moon grew larger and larger in her window. The pod systems were damaged. The landing rockets fired too late. Barely had time to strap herself in before the pod hit the trees. The impact threw her against the walls like a toy. Metal crumpled, glass shattered. Something hit her arm and she felt bone break. Then everything went black. When woke up, she was hanging upside down in the ruined pod. Blood dripped from a cut on her head. Her left arm screamed with pain every time she moved. Outside the broken window, she could see only green, trees, endless trees, a forest so thick that she could barely see the sky. It took her a long time to free herself from the straps. Every movement hurt. When she finally fell to the ground, she lay there for a while just breathing, just trying to understand that she was still alive. But being alive meant nothing to a who was alone. Crawled out of the pod and looked around. The crash had torn a path through the forest. Broken trees lay everywhere. Smoke rose from the pod's ruined engines. The air smelled strange, wet and green and full of life she did not recognize. She tried to activate her distress beacon. It was broken. She tried to call for help on her communicator. It was dead. She climbed the nearest hill and looked for any sign of the other pods, any sign of her crew. There was nothing, only trees stretching to the horizon in every direction. Sat down on the cold ground and felt something break inside her chest. Not a bone this time, something deeper, something that her species called the pack bond. They had evolved as pack hunters on a cold world full of dangers. They survived by staying together. Their minds were designed to connect with others, to share feelings and thoughts through subtle sounds and body language. Alone was not just sad. Alone was dying. Without pack bonds, their neural patterns would slowly fall apart. They would lose the ability to think clearly, to remember who they were, to want to live. The Galactic Union knew this. It was in all the medical files. Subjects must not be isolated for extended periods. Psychological deterioration begins within 2 weeks. Death follows within 2 months. Knew the numbers. She had studied them in school. She had never thought they would apply to her. Now, sitting on this unnamed moon, surrounded by alien trees with her arm broken and her family dead, she understood what those numbers meant. She was going to die here, not from her wounds, not from hunger or cold. She was going to die because she was alone and her mind would not survive it. The first night was the hardest. The forest moon had no sun. It orbited a gas giant and the only light came from the giant's reflected glow and the distant stars. Strange sounds filled the darkness, animals calling to each other, wind moving through leaves, the creaking of old trees. Found a fallen tree and crawled beneath it. She curled into a ball, wrapping her tail around her body for warmth. Her broken arm throbbed with every heartbeat. She had not eaten since the crash. She had found a small stream and drunk some water, but she did not know which plants were safe to eat. It did not matter. She probably would not live long enough to starve. As the hours passed, felt the loneliness growing inside her like a cold fire. It started in her chest and spread outward. Her thoughts became scattered. She found herself forgetting simple things. The name of her captain, the color of her mother's fur, the sound of her crew laughing together over dinner. This was how it began, the forgetting, the fatting. Pressed her face into the dirt and made a sound that no human had ever heard. A long, rising howl that carried through the forest, bouncing off trees and rocks and empty sky. It was the death howl, the isolation cry, a sound that meant only one thing. I am alone, I am dying, no one is coming. The howl faded into silence, closed her eyes and waited for the end. But somewhere in the forest, something was listening. A sensor beeped in a small station built into the side of a hill. A man looked up from his, frowning. The sensor showed impact tremors from the north. Something had crashed, something big. Protocol said to report it. Wait for instructions. Let the proper authorities handle first contact. The man stood up and grabbed his medical kit. He had stopped following protocol 3 years ago. That was when he had stopped caring whether he lived or died. His name was, and he was about to find something worth living for. Moved through the forest like a ghost. His feet made almost no sound on the soft ground. His eyes scanned the darkness ahead, watching for danger. He had been a soldier once, a combat medic with the United Earth Expeditionary Corps. 5 years fighting the Dominion across 100 different worlds. 5 years learning how to move, how to survive, how to keep people alive when everything was trying to kill them. Now he used those skills to walk through an alien forest in the middle of the night, following the trail of a crashed ship. The crash site was not hard to find. The pod had torn a long scar through the trees. Broken branches and burned leaves marked the path. At the end of the trail found the pod itself. A small escape vessel, badly damaged, smoke still rising from its hull. The design was Galactic Union, markings on the side. Felt his heart beat faster. They were not enemies of humanity, not exactly, but the two species had never been friends either. During the war with the Dominion, they had fought on the same side but separately. They did not trust humans. Nobody in the galaxy really trusted humans. He understood why. He had read the reports. He knew what the other species called his kind. Persistence apex predators, a fancy way of saying that humans were the scariest things in the known universe. They did not have claws or fangs or armor. They did not have psychic powers or poison glands, but they had something worse. They never stopped. They could chase prey for days without rest. They could survive wounds that would kill any other species. They formed hunting packs that coordinated with terrifying efficiency. And they had a strange, almost supernatural ability to bond with other creatures and make them loyal. The galaxy had watched humans tame wolves and horses and elephants. They had watched humans walk into burning buildings to save strangers. They had watched humans fight the Dominion war machine for 20 years and refused to surrender even when the math said they should lose. The galaxy was afraid of humans, could not blame them. He searched the crashed pod and found blood but no body. Someone had survived. Someone had crawled away into the forest, followed the trail. Broken branches, drops of blood on leaves, small footprints in the mud. Very small footprints. The trail led to a fallen tree, and there, curled up in the darkness beneath it, found the survivor. She was tiny, maybe half a meter tall if she stood up straight. Her body was covered in silver fur, now matted with blood and dirt. She had a face like a wolf but with larger eyes and a shorter snout. Her ears were tall and pointed, pressed flat against her head in fear. One of her arms was bent at a wrong angle, broken. She was also making a sound that had never heard before, a long, low howl that seemed to vibrate in his bones. It was not loud, but it carried. It filled the forest with a sadness so deep that felt his eyes sting with tears. He knew what this was. He had studied during his training. This was the isolation cry, the death howl, a sound that meant the creature making it had given up hope. Stepped closer and the howling stopped. The small looked up at him, and her amber eyes went wide with terror. She tried to stand, tried to run, but her broken arm made her cry out in pain. She fell back against the tree and bared her teeth at him. Those teeth were small, sharp but small. She was no threat to him, was almost 2 meters tall and weighed more than 4 times what she did. He could have killed her with one hand. She knew it. He could see it in her eyes. But he had not come here to kill. Easy, said. He kept his voice soft, calm. He lowered himself to one knee, making himself smaller, less threatening. I am not going to hurt you. The growled at him. It was a weak sound. She was exhausted, hurt, scared. Did not move closer. He just waited. Patience was something he had learned in the war. Sometimes the best thing you could do was nothing. Just be there. Just let the other person understand that you were not a threat. Minutes passed. The watched him with those big amber eyes. Her growling slowly faded. Her body stopped shaking quite so much. She was still afraid, but she was also curious. Humans were supposed to be monsters. Why was this one just sitting there? Then she made the sound again, the isolation cry. It was softer this time, more like a question than a statement. I am alone. Is anyone there? Felt something move in his chest. He thought about his squad, 7 soldiers who had followed him into hell and never come back. He thought about the nightmares that still woke him up screaming. He thought about 3 years alone on this moon, trying to find a reason to keep breathing. He understood that sound. He understood it perfectly. So did something strange. Something that went against all his training, all his instincts, everything he had ever learned about first contact with alien species. He tilted his head back, opened his mouth and howled. It was not a good howl. Human throats were not designed for it. The sound came out rough and broken, more like a wounded animal than a proper response. But it was the right shape, the right feeling. I am here, you are not alone. The stared at him. Her ears slowly rose from their flattened position. Her eyes got even wider. She made a small sound, not a growl, not a howl, something between a whimper and a question. Reached slowly into his bag and pulled out his medical kit. He opened it so she could see inside. Bandages, medicine, tools for fixing broken things. Your arm is broken, he said. He pointed at her injured limb. I can help if you let me. The looked at the kit, looked at him, looked at the dark forest around them. She was thinking, calculating, trying to decide if death at the hands of a human was worse than death from isolation and injury. Finally, she made a decision. She lowered her head and closed her eyes. Submission, trust, or maybe just surrender. Moved slowly. He cleaned her wounds first. The cut on her head was not deep. The broken arm was more serious. He set the bone as gently as he could, but she still cried out in pain. He wrapped the arm in bandages and gave her something for the pain. Through it all, she watched him. Her eyes never left his face. She was waiting for the trick, waiting for the monster to show itself. But just worked, quiet, careful, patient. When he was done, he sat back and looked at her. She was still weak, still scared, but she was also still alive. That was something. "Can you walk?" he asked. She did not answer. Maybe she did not understand the words, but when stood up and offered his hand, she hesitated only a moment before reaching out with her good arm. Her paw was small and soft in his palm. Her claws pricked his skin but did not cut, lifted her gently and cradled her against his chest. She weighed almost nothing. "My station is not far," he said. "You can rest there, eat, get stronger." They made a small sound. It might have been agreement. It might have been fear, did not know. He just started walking. Behind them, the crashed pod smoked in the darkness. Ahead of them, the forest stretched on forever. And somewhere between the two, a human and began a journey that neither of them expected. She had howled that she was alone. He had answered. Now they would find out what that answer meant. The human station was built into the side of a hill. From outside, it looked like part of the forest. Moss grew on the walls. Vines covered the roof. Only the small windows and the metal door showed that something unnatural was hiding here. Inside, it was warm and dry. There was a bed in one corner, a small kitchen in another. Screens and machines filled one wall, blinking with lights and data. The air smelled like food and medicine and something else. Something that would later learn was the smell of loneliness. Put her down on the bed. It was too big for her. She felt like a pup in a giant's furniture. But it was soft, and she was so tired that she did not care. She watched the human move around the station. He heated water. He prepared food. He checked his machines. He did not look at her much, but she could tell he was always aware of where she was, always watching from the corner of his eye, like a predator keeping track of prey. No, not prey, something else. She did not have a word for it yet. When brought her food, did not eat. She stared at the bowl of cooked meat and vegetables, her nose twitching. It smelled good, but it also smelled like a trap. "It is not poison," said. He sat down on the floor far away from the bed, making himself small again. "I changed the proteins so your body can use them, cannot eat human food normally. I know." How did he know? Wanted to ask, but her throat was too tight. She had not spoken since the crash. The words felt stuck inside her, buried under fear and grief. Seemed to understand. He did not push. He just sat there, eating his own food, waiting. Time passed. Hours, maybe days, was not sure. She slept a lot. Her body was healing, but her mind was still breaking. The isolation sickness crept through her thoughts like poison. She forgot things, simple things, where she was, how she got here. Sometimes she forgot that the human was not going to hurt her, and she would wake up screaming, clawing at the air. Every time was there, not close. He never came too close, but he was there, sitting in his corner, watching, waiting. "It is okay," he would say. His voice was always calm, always soft. "You are safe, I am here." The words meant nothing at first, just sounds, but slowly, very slowly, they started to matter. On the fifth day, finally spoke. "Why?" Looked up from his eyes met hers. They were brown, she noticed, like tree bark, like earth. "Why what?" "Why help?" His voice was rough from not using it. Her galactic common was not very good. She was still learning when the ship crashed. Human and not friends, why help enemy? Was quiet for a long moment. He put down his and looked at his hands. They were big hands, strong hands, hands that had probably killed many times. "Are you my enemy?" he asked. Did not know how to answer. The war was over. The and the humans had never really fought each other, but they had never been close either. Her people feared humans. Everyone feared humans. "Say humans are monsters," she said. Laughed. It was a short, sad sound. "Are right, humans are monsters. We have done terrible things. I have done terrible things." Then why help? Because monsters can choose. Looked at her again. His eyes were tired, old, even though his face was young. We can choose to kill. We can choose to save. I have killed enough. I want to save something, even if it is just one small who crashed in my forest. Thought about this, it did not make sense to her. In the world you were what you were. Hunters hunted, prey ran, pack protected pack. There was no choosing, there was only being. But humans were different. Humans were strange. Maybe that was why the galaxy feared them so much. The days continued to pass, grew stronger, her arm healed. She started eating the food prepared. She even started moving around the station, exploring its corners, learning its smells. Let her do what she wanted. He never ordered her around, never touched her without permission. He just existed in the same space, doing his work, giving her room to breathe. At night, the isolation sickness still came, would feel her mind slipping, her thoughts scattering, the loneliness eating at her from inside. She would curl into a ball and shake, waiting for the darkness to take her. But then would start talking. He would tell her about Earth, about blue oceans and green forests and cities full of people. He would tell her about his family, a mother who made soup when he was sick, a father who taught him to fix broken machines, a sister who laughed at everything. He would tell her about the war, about his squad, 7 soldiers who became his family, how they fought together, bled together, trusted each other with their lives. How they died together, all except him. I was supposed to protect them, said one night. His voice was barely a whisper. I was the medic. Keeping them alive was my job. But when the Dominion came, I could not save them. I tried. I ran to each one, but they were already gone, and I was too slow, too weak, too human. Listened, she did not understand all the words, but she understood the feeling, the guilt, the grief, the terrible weight of being the one who lived. You are alone too, she said. Nodded, yes, I have been alone for 3 years. I came to this moon to hide, to forget, to wait until I did not have to feel anymore. Did it work? No, looked at her. In the dim light, his eyes were wet. It never works. The loneliness just grows. It eats everything. I thought I wanted to die, but when I heard you howling in the forest, I knew I was lying to myself. I did not want to die. I wanted someone to answer. Felt something shift inside her chest. The cold place where the isolation sickness lived grew a little smaller, a little warmer. Have a word, she said slowly. Pack bond, it means connection, family, the thing that keeps us alive. Humans have something similar. We call it love or friendship or just being there. You are being there for me. Yes. Why? Smiled. It was a sad smile, but real. Because I heard you howling that you were alone, and I know what that feels like. I could not let you feel it by yourself. That night did something she had never done before. She climbed off the bed and crossed the room. Watched her come, not moving, barely breathing. She stopped in front of him, looked up at his face. Then she pressed her forehead against his chest and closed her eyes. In language, it meant trust. It meant family. It meant pack. His arms slowly wrapped around her small body. He held her gently, like she was made of glass. I am here, he whispered. You are not alone anymore. Felt the words sink into her bones. She felt the isolation sickness pause just for a moment. She felt something she had not felt since the crash. Hope. Outside, the forest moon turned slowly in the light of the gas giant. Inside, a human and a sat together in the darkness, 2 broken creatures learning how to stay. Weeks became months. The forest moon continued its slow dance around the gas giant. Seasons changed. Leaves fell and grew again. Rain came and went. And inside the small station, something strange and beautiful was growing. Learned to speak Galactic Common much better. Was a patient teacher. He never laughed at her mistakes. He just repeated the words until she got them right. In return, taught him. Not just the words, but the sounds beneath the words, the harmonics, the frequencies. the feelings that wove into their speech like colors into cloth. Human throats were not designed for speech, could not make most of the sounds, but he tried. Night after night he sat with and practiced. His howls sounded like broken machinery. His harmonics were all wrong, but he never gave up. "Why do you keep trying?" asked one evening. "You will never speak properly. Human bodies cannot do it." Shrugged, "I cannot run as fast as either, but I still run. The trying is what matters, not the succeeding." Thought about this for a long time. It was such a human idea, such a strange, stubborn, beautiful idea. They developed routines. In the mornings would scout the forest around the station. Her small body was perfect for moving through the thick plants. She would check for danger, map new paths, find sources of food and water. When she came back, would be waiting with breakfast ready. In the afternoons, worked on his machines. He was supposed to be monitoring the forest moon, collecting data, sending reports. It was boring work, but it kept him busy. Would sit nearby and watch, asking questions about everything. What does this button do? Why does that screen blink? How does the water cleaner work? Answered every question. He seemed to enjoy teaching her. It gave him purpose, something to do besides sitting alone with his thoughts. In the evenings, they sat together by the fire, had built a small fireplace near the station, loved fire. It reminded them of the ancient days when their ancestors huddled together against the cold, would curl up near the flames and would sit beside her, close enough to touch but never pushing. They talked about everything, their homes, their families, their dreams, their fears. Told about her parents, how they had died in a mining accident when she was just 3 cycles old, how Captain had found her crying in the wreckage, how he had carried her to the silent dawn and given her a new family. He was like a father, said. Her voice was soft, sad. He taught me to read the stars, to navigate, to find my way home no matter where I was. He said a good navigator is never truly lost. He sounds like a good man, said. He was, they all were, closed her eyes. Engineer Minu used to sing while he worked. Terrible songs, everyone complained, but it made the ship feel alive. Navigator taught me to braid fur. She said it was a skill every woman should know. And pilot, he was young, funny. He would make jokes during long flights to keep everyone awake. His voice broke. The memories hurt, but she kept going. She needed to say their names, to remember them, to make sure they were not forgotten. Listened to everything. He did not try to make her feel better. He did not say that it would be okay. He just sat there, present, solid, real. When she finished, he told her about his squad. 7 soldiers, he said. 7 people I would have died for. Sergeant was the leader. She was tough, scary. But she always made sure everyone ate before she did. Private was the youngest, just 19. He joined the war because his brother died in the first Dominion attack. He wanted revenge, but he was too kind for revenge. He used to give his ration bars to refugees. Named them all. 7 names, 7 stories, 7 people who had lived and laughed and loved and died. The Dominion ambushed us on a moon like this one, he said. Dense forest, no clear sight lines. They came out of nowhere. I tried to reach them. I ran faster than I have ever run, but humans are not fast enough to outrun death. His hands were shaking, moved closer and pressed her body against his side. The warmth seemed to help. His shaking slowly stopped. I survived because I was behind them, said. Because I was the medic. Because they put themselves between me and the enemy. They died protecting me, and I have hated myself for it ever since. It was not your fault, said. I know, my head knows, but my heart does not believe it. Hearts are stupid, said. Say the heart is a wild animal. It does not listen to reason. It only listens to other hearts. Looked down at her. Something shifted in his eyes, something like surprise, something like gratitude. Other hearts, he repeated. Is that why you press against me like this? You are trying to make my heart listen. Thought about it? Yes, heal in packs. We cannot heal alone. When one heart is broken, the other hearts gather around it. They beat together. They remind the broken heart that it is not alone, that it has a reason to keep beating. That is beautiful. That is survival. But maybe beautiful and survival are the same thing. The months continued to pass. Isolation sickness slowly faded. It did not disappear completely. Some nights she still woke up shaking, her mind scattered by loneliness, but was always there. He would hold her and hum and whisper the same words over and over. I am here, I am not leaving, you are not alone. His nightmares continued too. He would scream in his sleep, reaching for people who were not there, learn to recognize the sounds. She would climb onto his chest and press her forehead against his face, humming the comfort song until he calmed. They were broken, both of them, cracked in places that would never fully heal, but broken things could still fit together. Broken things could still be useful. Broken things could still be loved. One night climbed to the top of a nearby hill and looked up at the stars, followed her as he always did now. They stood together in the darkness, watching the galaxy spin overhead. I thought I would die here, said. When I crashed, when I howled, I was sure I would die. So did I, said. I have been dying for 3 years, slowly, one day at a time. Are you still dying? Was quiet for a long moment, then he shook his head. No, I think I am finally starting to live again. Leaned against his leg. He was so big compared to her, so different, but the differences did not matter anymore. They were pack, they were family, they were home. Have a word for what we are, she said. Pack bond. It is the strongest connection we can make. Stronger than blood, stronger than duty. It means forever. Forever is a long time. Yes, looked up at him. Her amber eyes were bright. Are you scared? Smiled. It was a real smile this time, not sad, not tired, just happy. No, he said, I am not scared anymore. Above them, the stars continued to shine, and somewhere in the vast, cold galaxy, 2 broken creatures had found something precious. They had found each other. 6 months after the crash, a ship appeared in the sky. Saw it first. She was outside checking the water collectors when she noticed the light, a bright point moving against the stars, too fast to be natural, too steady to be random. She ran back to the station, was already looking at his screens. His face was pale. Galactic Union vessel, he said. Recovery class, they are looking for something. Me whispered, they are looking for me. The ship landed in a clearing 2 kilometers from the station and watched from the hill as figures emerged. 4 of them, dressed in the uniforms of the Galactic Union Recovery Corps. The leader was a tall female with dark fur and sharp eyes. Her name was, she was a commander. She had been sent to find the wreckage of the Silent Dawn and recover any survivors. She had not expected to find any. Followed the trail from the old crash site. It led her through the forest, past streams and fallen trees, until she came to a clearing where a human stood waiting. Stopped, her soldiers stopped behind her. They all reached for their weapons. Human said, her voice was cold, careful. You are not supposed to be here. This moon is not in human territory. Raised his empty hands. I am not armed. I am not a threat. I am just a researcher. I have been living here for 3 years. A researcher did not believe him, alone. Not anymore. And then stepped out from behind. She walked forward, past his legs, and stood in the open where they could see her. His eyes went wide. Navigator, you are alive. I am alive, said, because of him. The silence was heavy. Looked at the way the small stood close to the human's leg, not afraid, not running, completely calm. You saved her, said slowly. A human saved her. She was hurt, she was alone, I could help, shrugged. So I helped. Did not know what to say. This was not how things worked. Humans were dangerous. Humans were to be avoided. The Galactic Union had rules about human contact, 17 different warnings in the official database. But here was a young, healthy and strong, standing beside a human like he was family. "We have come to take you home," finally said Tu. "Your people have been searching. Your name is on the memorial wall. Everyone thinks you are dead." "I know," said. "I want to go home. I want to see my people again. But I have a question first." "Ask." He looked back at her. His face was calm, but she could see the sadness in his eyes. He knew what was coming. He had been waiting for it since the ship appeared. "Can my pack bond come with me?" asked. The silence was even heavier now. Soldiers shifted nervously. This was not a simple question. Humans were restricted from space. The process for allowing a human to enter would take years. Mountains of paperwork, endless committees, political arguments. "That is complicated," said. "I know it is complicated." His voice was steady, strong. "But I am asking anyway, can he come?" Did not answer. She was studying him, trying to understand what she was seeing. "He is a human," she said. "Humans are dangerous." "Humans are many things," said. "I have lived with one for 6 months. I have seen him dangerous. I have also seen him gentle, kind, patient. He found me dying in the forest. He healed my wounds. He talked to me through the long nights when the isolation sickness tried to take me. He saved my life, Commander, not with weapons, not with strength, with presence, with care, with love." The word hung in the air. Love, such a small word, such a huge meaning. Stepped forward. "I will not cause trouble. I am not a soldier anymore. I do not want to fight. I just want." He stopped, swallowed. "I just want to not be alone anymore. She saved me as much as I saved her." Looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at. The young was staring at her commander with absolute determination. This was not a request. This was a statement, a line drawn in the sand. "If he cannot come," said quietly, "then I will stay. Your people need you. Your family needs to know you are alive." "He is my family now," pressed against leg. "Pack bond, forever. That is what it means. I will not leave him behind." Closed her eyes. She was a soldier. She followed rules. She did what she was told. But she understood pack bonds. She knew what it meant to find someone worth keeping. "This will not be easy," she said finally. "The Union will have questions. There will be hearings, committees, politics." "I do not care about politics," said. "I care about him." Opened her eyes, and slowly, very slowly, she smiled. "Then we will figure it out together." 1 year later, stood on the surface of a new world. A planet of endless forests and silver rivers and moons that filled the night sky. He lived in a small house at the edge of family territory. The other had been afraid of him at first. A human, a predator, a monster from the stars, but had introduced him with her forehead pressed against his chest, the deepest sign of trust, and slowly the fear had faded. The pups were the first to accept him. They climbed on his shoulders and pulled his hair and asked him endless questions about Earth. Was it true that humans could run for days without stopping? Was it true that they had once tamed wolves? Was it true that they went to their moon just because they wanted to? Answered every question. He let them climb. He told them stories. And bit by bit, the adult began to see what had seen. This was not a monster. This was Pack. The hearings had been long. The committees had been difficult, but had spoken before the Union Council. She had told them everything. The crash, the forest, the human who had answered her howl. "You classify humans as monsters," she had said. "I classified him that way too, but he heard me dying in the darkness and he came anyway. He stayed when he could have left. He held me when I was breaking. That is not a monster. That is family. That is Pack." Her words had changed things. Not everything. The galaxy was still afraid of humans, but some began to wonder if fear was the whole story. Now sat by a fire on an alien world, surrounded by creatures who had once considered him an enemy. Was curled against his side, her silver fur warm in the firelight. The moons rose overhead, filling the sky with soft light. "Are you happy?" asked. Thought about the question. He thought about his squad, still gone, still missed. He thought about his nightmares, still coming, still painful. He thought about all the broken parts of himself that would never fully heal. Then he looked down at the small wolf person pressed against him, his pack bond, his family, his reason to keep going. "Yes," he said, "I am happy." Made a sound, a soft, low howl, not the isolation cry, not the death howl, something new, something she had invented just for him. It meant, "I am here, you are here, we are home." Did not have the throat to howl properly, but he tried anyway. His voice cracked and broke, but the meaning was clear. "I am here, you are here, we are home." Around them the camp grew quiet. They listened to the strange duet, a human and a singing the same song in two different voices. Some of the elders shook their heads. This was not how things were done. This was not normal. But the pups listened with wide eyes, and some of them began to howl along. Maybe normal was not the point. Maybe normal was just fear wearing a comfortable mask. Maybe the galaxy needed more strange duets, more impossible friendships, more broken creatures finding each other in the dark. Had howled that she was alone. Had whispered that she was not anymore. And in the end, that was all that mattered. They were pack, they were family, they were found. They were home,